Hello, everyone. Welcome to this new episode of the ice cream series. Today, Brian is not going to be with us, as you have me as your teacher. I'm Marco Filippelli. I run the Frozen Dessert University here in North America. Today, we're going to make some very special flavor in this new format of the ice cream series that we start this year. Every episode is going to have a new theme based on the seasonal flavor that we're going to have. Today, we're going to make the theme dedicated to Valentine's Day. So we're going to have two very special recipe. From this new season, you're going to receive at the end of each class a recipe page that is going to list all the ingredients we use and all the process to make this recipe happen. Today, the first recipe that we're going to make is a dark chocolate truffle ice cream. And the second one is going to be a raspberry ice cream with chocolate ripple. The first step to make this recipe is, of course, to prepare our machine. As we have in the back, we have our LB True 2 RTX. We have our high overrun beater because we're making our high overrun ice cream today. After preparing our machine, we will run the sanitizer. As you see, I prepared here the sanitizer to clean properly our machine. And then the next step is preparing the variegation that goes on top of our ice cream. After preparing that, we're going to batch our base and we're going to variegate it with the inclusion that we prepare already. Okay? So this is what we're going to do today. If you're ready, I'm going to start by putting my gloves. I'm used to work with gloves. I know some people prefer to work without it. Personal preference. In their laboratory, everyone does it the way they want it. So, for sanitizer, this is an important step to clean out every possible allergen that you have in your machine. We have our clean water. We have our powder sanitizer with milkstone removal. This is a process that we do all at the beginning of the day or while we change allergens. So we want to make sure the machine is cleaned and sanitized. We pour our powder inside the liquid. We stir it. And then we are going to put this mix inside our machine. We check that all the doors are closed and we pour it in. When we pour it in the machine, we have our cycle that we can choose from. I'm going to choose the cleaning cycle. So the machine is going to run and turn and the mix is going to get sanitized. Okay? This process depends on state by state, but it lasts a few minutes. When I'm going to extract the water, I'm not going to throw this away, but I'm going to keep it on the side. I'm going to put my sponge in it, and I'm going to use the water with sanitizer to clean all my machine outside and make sure that I always work in a clean space. Now, let's take our dark chocolate truffle ice cream. We have multiple elements, the base and the variegation. So I've already had put the chocolate to warm up. In this recipe, I'm going to use a chocolate frozen custard. This is from a dairy called Meadowvale. You can use any chocolate you have. This recipe is going to work great with anyone. I like to put a little bit of salt in chocolate to give a little bit of contrast. Chocolate and salt does very well. So in your recipe, you're going to see that for a full bag of mix, so 2.5 gallon, you're going to use 5 grams of salt, 10 grams of salt. Depends a lot on personal preference. So I'm going to put this one inside. Anytime I add salt to a mix, I need to stir it very well. So I need to make sure to reblend it because salt is like a stone. So you need to make sure that it's blended well inside your mix. So I have my blender here. I'm going to In general, reblending the flavor gives always a better texture because it helps the mix um, to re-homogenize together. You know, this mix sometimes has been sitting inside the bags or in a powder for a very long time. So it's good to reblend them a little bit. So now we have our base with salt. This is one part, but before to put this one inside the machine, we need to prepare the variegation. The variegation in this case is made out of three elements. The chocolate, I have a dark chocolate here that I melted in the microwave, cream, and honey. So all the three elements need to be warmed up. So I need to warm up the cream, I need to warm up the honey, I need to warm up the chocolate. We are not doing a tempering of the chocolate, so it's enough that it arrived to 100 Fahrenheit, more or less, 90, depending on the kind of chocolate, but as long as it's liquid, this is gonna be fine. When we add the cream, if we add the cream that is cold, and you put it inside here, the problem is that this one will harden very quickly, while what you're trying to create is a sort of ganache that is gonna stay creamy inside your chocolate ice cream. Even after freezing, that's why we add the honey, is to make sure that this consistency will remain creamy even after freezing. So this is our chocolate, is melted. You can use your microwave, you can use a bain-marie system. All these systems are gonna work. So our machine here, we have our sanitizer. We are opening the door gently to make sure that all the water comes out. Okay, our machine is ready. Before to put the entire mix in US, we cannot rinse the sanitizer with water. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna put a little bit of the mix to rinse the machine, discard it again, and then put all the rest of the mix. But before we prepare our ganache, we have our chocolate. We're gonna pour in our honey inside the chocolate, and we're gonna blend it. We're not gonna use a whisk because we don't want any air incorporation. A spatula will do the job. You don't need any whisking on this one, any whipping. You don't need to add any air. Simply, you need to create a sauce. That's what you need to do. And it's important that all the elements in here are slightly warm when you're trying to combine them. You need a little bit of patience to blend them together. So every time we talk about Valentine, generally, we need to have a little bit of chocolate. So that's why all the flavor that we're doing today are connected to chocolate. So I'm mixing and mixing and mixing until I don't see that the consistency of my sauce is creamy. It needs to be shiny. Voila, this is our sauce. It's lucid. So while we put the mix inside the machine, we need to cool down a little bit this sauce, because if it's too hot, then when you put it in top of your ice cream, it's gonna melt it everything. So it doesn't need to be cold, but it need to be colder than it is right now. Right now we are around 90 Fahrenheit. So we need to reduce the temperature. I have a hardening cabinet here. So I'm going to place it inside the hardening cabinet for the time that the machine is going to freeze my ice cream. Remember, your table always clean. And now, let's put the mix inside. We have our chocolate ice cream mix. I'm going to pour a little bit of this one inside. I'm going to turn it so the sanitizer gets rinsed out. And then I'm going to discard it here. We're talking only about a little bit. We're talking about 3-4 ounces of product. We're not talking about large amount. We just want to make sure that no one get that special taste of sanitizer in their mouth. So we are double cleaning. Okay, the entire mix goes in. And now, very important, we have to remember that here there are our holidays. So we need to make sure to clean each of our container very well. We don't leave any product inside. We clean, we put everything inside the machine. Chocolate is expensive, so we don't want to leave none for inside the bucket. Okay, we close our machine, and now we have our machine are very simple. We set the program, in this case is going to be SP. We set the consistency, so how thick we want the product to be. I want it pretty thick because I want to variegate it on top with chocolate, so it need to be firm. Now, another important thing, as I told you, I have my wet sponge that I'm going to put inside the water with sanitizer. And with this one, I'm going to clean the outside of the machine. So the machine stays always clean. Okay. So this one, we will extract it. We can either extract it into a tub, an ice cream tub, if we're doing like an ice cream style product. So this one is going to be layered. And generally, when we work with this one, we produce them a lot. We seal them and we put it on stock. Today, we're going to extract it in this one because in this way, you will be able to see how we variegated, how we incorporate our ganache inside the product. It's going to be exactly the same if you use a tub like this one. Just for you to be able to see better, I'm going to use a clear, transparent pan today, which is going to be more fun for people to see this pen and how we variegate it, how we enrich it. While this one is going, remember in our ice cream shop, we never stay still. We always have to do something, the next move, what is going to be. In this case, we need to we can prepare the second flavor, which is still going to have chocolate, but it's going to be different. This, instead of being a ganache with cream, with as you see in this process here, we put the chocolate, we put the cream, we put the honey. In this case, we're going to add oil or cocoa butter. Either one is going to work. How you decide if you want oil or if you want cocoa butter in your chocolate? If you add oil, you're going to have a more liquidy consistency, so it's not going to be very crunchy. If you're expecting a crunchy feeling, like a bite with a crunch, you need to put cocoa butter. That is going to make your chocolate very hard, and it's going to be very, very fluid and very easy to bite when you have it. In this case, I choose to have something a little bit softer, so I choose oil. But if you want to do it crunchy, just replace oil with cocoa butter in the same exact amount that you're going to find in your recipe. I'll start to melt this one, the chocolate, and we're going to go with some questions. Olivia, we have some question? So this one can be sunflower oil, canola oil, grapeseed oil, generally oil that have no taste. For example, we cannot use an extra virgin olive oil or something like this, or a coconut oil, but because they tend to be very flavorful. So in this case, I'm going to add something that doesn't have any taste whatsoever. So any oil that doesn't have any taste is going to be good. In this case, this is sunflower. So my chocolate is melting. When this is melt, I'm going to add the oil to it. The chocolate I'm using for your reference is a 60% dark chocolate. So we're going to have chocolate. We have cocoa. We have cocoa mass, cocoa butter, and sugar. Um, in America, I think you need to use like a 60%, 70, because people like a very sweeter kind of chocolate. If you want it a little bit darker, a little bit more bitter, choose a chocolate that is like an 80% cocoa mass, a 90%. This one is going to make your flavor be a little bit more bitter, and then consequently for adults and not for kids, because when it's too bitter, generally kids prefer a sweeter taste than that one. Now, changing flavor. We're going to start preparing the other one. In this other one, we have today, we have prepared a raspberry ice cream. Raspberry ice cream, not using any flavoring, but using fruit puree. So in this case, I have my ice cream mix, I have my raspberry puree, and I have sugar. Either if you don't want to use puree, but you want to use fresh raspberries, is the same. The puree, if you have an ice cream store, give you a consistency so that every time you have always the same product. So you're not like having one day when you pick the fruit from a local farm, you're going to have always a different kind of sugar level. In this case, if you take a puree, it's going to be always the same. So here I have my ice cream base. I'm going to add my puree, and then I'm going to add the sugar. Why I add sugar? Because the puree here is very rich of water. So if I add this puree to my base and I add all this amount of water, I need to compensate with some sugar. I need to make sure that the product that then I'm going to add balance out all the amount of water I added. So this is going to be very different when we use flavoring, for example, when we use a raspberry flavoring, because the flavoring is so concentrated that I can use 1 ounce of flavoring inside without changing my recipe. But when I use fresh ingredients, like in this case, I need always to balance out my recipe to make sure that in the showcase, the sugar level of all my flavor is equal. These are all things, by the way, that we teach during our classes. So we have our level 1 when we focus more on following recipe, that like the one that I'm giving to you now. And then we have level 2 where we teach all of you how to create your own recipe, taking in consideration all the factors that I'm listing right now. So I'm going to wash my blade. On the chocolate. And here again, since I added sugar, I added a puree, I need to blend everything very well. Okay. I blended my ice cream, so you see, and I'm gonna show you the beautiful color here. I have a pinky color in this case. This is gonna be the one that I'm gonna variegate with dark chocolate. I'm gonna leave it on the side because right now our machine is calling for this flavor to be ready. In the Carpigiani machine, you don't have to rush when the machine beep you that the product is ready, because the machine, if you're not ready to extract, is going to maintain the consistency until you're not ready to go back and actually extract your ice cream. So I'm taking my ganache that became a little harder right now because, of course, I gave them some cold, so the chocolate start to harden up. So I'm going to move it to make sure that it goes back to being creamy. I don't expect this to be liquid. I expect this to be creamy so that I can drizzle it on top without being clumsy, let's say. Now, I have here um, my machine that is beeping. I'm gonna start to extract a first part of it. And then when I extract the first part, I'll have to variegate it with my ganache. So I'm gonna add the ganache directly on top of it. I'm not scared of putting a lot of ganache because people are expecting this flavor to be rich. If it was a bucket, I would do exactly the same type of job. So if it was a 3-gallon bucket, I would start extract layer by layer, put a little bit on top, move it so that all the product get incorporated. So it's very important that every customer that takes this flavor is lucky enough to get the ice cream and the topping and the variegation. So we need to make sure about that, because if not, we have lucky customer that get a lot of chocolate and unlucky one then don't get any. So look at the beautiful consistency here we have. You see, this being a chocolate frozen custard ice cream is also tend to be way richer in flavor because of the egg that there is inside the frozen custard. So now what I have to do, I open the door, making sure that there's no product inside, so the machine is clean. This is very important when you buy a machine, that you make sure that there's no like residues, but the machine is able to extract all the product is inside, because if the machine leave product inside, that's lost marginality every time you make a flavor. So again, I'm gonna put a little bit of the ganache now, and then I'm gonna put a little bit after the hardening cabinet. So I first give it the time to harden a little bit, because right now this ganache is very warm for the ice cream. So the ganache is gonna be probably at 50 Fahrenheit. The ice cream right now is at 15, 18. So I need to give it a little bit of time for the ice cream to not put too much ganache on top of it, or it's going to melt. And if it's going to melt, when it's going to refreeze inside the showcase, you're going to have very icy structure. So I go inside the hardening cabinet. For everyone, of course, I know that some people work without hardening cabinet, but having better equipment in your kitchen make your life way easier. So if you have a hardening cabinet, the quality of your ice cream will grow because you process it properly. Okay, so now we go ahead and we do the raspberry. We cannot do the raspberry after the chocolate. Neither we can do the chocolate after the raspberry because it's an allergen. So what we need to do, we need to rinse out the chocolate from the unit so we make sure that this chocolate don't go inside the color of our raspberry. We want to make sure that the color of our raspberry stay pink as much as possible. If not, if we go straight away, this chocolate is not going to give any flavor, but it's going to affect the color of our raspberry. We don't need to do a deep cleaning in this case, unless we don't want to get rid of all the allergens. But if not, it's simple enough to put some warm water. In this case, I use the same water with sanitizer that I used before. I'm going to run one cycle, and then I'm going to run another cycle to do the final cleaning before that we go ahead and we use the raspberry ice cream that we have prepared. At the same time, I'm preparing the chocolate. So I'm melting the chocolate that I need to add with the oil that I prepared here. Since this is oil, I don't need to warm it up. If it's cocoa butter, you need to do a heating process of the cocoa butter to melt it. Don't melt the cocoa butter and the chocolate together. Melt it separately and then unite it together because they have different fusion points and you risk to burn the chocolate and the cocoa butter still is not melted. So do it separately. Now, I'm gonna remove the first part of water. I'm gonna prepare another bucket with some water for the second cycle. And then we're gonna go ahead with our raspberry flavor. In an ideal world, you always go lighter color to darker color. So we should have started with the raspberry, but I forgot about it, and so we started with chocolate. Okay, remember your station always clean, remove everything that you don't need. And this one for you all is going to be fun because we're going to release every session. We're going to release a new recipe type that you can experiment. Remember that here you have a lot of option of things that you can do. For example, the chocolate that we're talking right now, there's a potential finishing with cocoa powder. So you could spray cocoa powder on decorate it the way you want it with cookie, like a brownie brittle on top, or eventually for the raspberry, you can buy like little chocolate red heart, like for some Valentine, so to give it even a little bit more fun look and more seasonal. In this case, for the raspberry, I use simply the base and the raspberry puree and the sugar. I didn't add any lemon juice. The lemon juice is really optional. Depends if you want that tart flavor. Also, the lemon juice help a little bit with the shelf life of your fruit puree. So, guys, if you can see, the machine now is clean. We have again a new clean machine. In the inside, we're gonna put the product in and then clean also the outside that we see over here. Okay, now it's time for our raspberry to go in. all the way in. As always, we clean our bucket very well. We close it, we press the same program as we did before, and we clean the outside of our unit. Okay, now we wait till this is ready. While this is getting ready, we prepare our chocolate toppings. So this one is something also you can buy. You can buy already made, but it's so simple to do that really there's no reason. This is simple chocolate that you can buy at any store, and oil. And what you do, you have to emulsify the oil inside the chocolate. So you move it and you slowly add the oil inside. And you keep it mixing till it's not completely absorbed. And now you're gonna notice that since you add the oil, the chocolate is more fluid, is more liquid, because you reduce the amount of cocoa powder that there is inside by adding the oil. And now when we're gonna use it for a variegation, this one is gonna become like a chocolate brittle style, but this one is gonna be a soft coating, not a crunchy coating, because we use oil. We take back our other flavor, and now we add the finishing for the ganache. I'm gonna move it again. Again, here, if you want, you can add like some brownie brittle, some sponge cake, some short crust, some cookies for decoration. But this is really get the image of a Valentine flavor with a very chocolatey look, with a very nostalgic flavor. I can't wait to try it. Our employee here at Carpigiani will be so happy to have this chocolate on chocolate with chocolate flavor. So I hope you'll be able to try it in your store too, because this is going to be the top seller of the Valentine period. You see me putting it again inside the hardening cabinet because we need to harden it. So generally, you will leave it overnight, and the day after, you can you put it inside your showcase and you start to scoop it from there. Remember that depending on the type of product, the process for making it can change. If you make a more of a gelato style, you can serve it straight away because it tends to be softer. If you want hard scooped ice cream, as this recipe is, you leave it on the hardening cabinet overnight to harden up. This recipe can work, the variegation can work with anything. So if you want to change this one, and other than the chocolate, you want to make a chocolate lavender, you want to make a chocolate with a rose infusion, you could do that. In the base, you add the rose infusion, and then you put the variegation. You can do whatever you want. This is up to your creativity. You don't necessarily need to serve like a simple chocolate if you want to make like a more unique flavor. Even if you have a base from a dairy farm, doesn't mean that you cannot be creative. There are other ways to add unique flavor to your chocolate. Now, our second recipe, we said we added the ice cream base, we had a raspberry puree. So in this case, I had a frozen raspberry puree from Pontier. This is a company that we work with. They produce premium quality puree fruit. Right now in the market, you have plenty of options. You could buy aseptic fruit puree, you can buy frozen, you can buy fresh fruit, whatever you want. I personally like a lot either the frozen or the aseptic because every time I make a batch, it's going to be always the same. I'm not a big fan of using fresh fruit. If in your area people generally prefer like a more intense flavor, it's going to be very hard to achieve if you use a natural fruit. You'll need to use a flavoring if you want to enhance this raspberry strength. So this is really depends on you. Sometimes people do follow this recipe and still add a little bit of raspberry flavoring just to give a little bit more strength. This is totally personal preference of your style, your store, what you communicate. And the chocolate ripple, even here, something that I really like, in this flavor would be to have like some raspberry dried freeze. You can buy them on Amazon, wherever you want. And on the variegation, add these raspberry pieces because they will give a more vibrant color, like a reddish that is in contrast with our chocolate and with the pink that we're going to extract from our ice cream that we have on the machine. Also, this one, we are going to extract it inside one of our transparent pans so you can see what's going on inside this one. But again, if you have a top, it's going to be exactly the same process. We're going to extract part of our ice cream. We're going to put some chocolate on top to make the variegation. We're going to move it to make sure that the chocolate goes everywhere inside our container. And then the second layer, a little bit more, and then the decoration on top. Any question, Libya? No question. That's good. So the next session that we're going to have is going to be Olivia St. Patrick. Is that correct? We're going to have St. Patrick edition. So every month in January, we make the flavor that you should propose in your ice cream store on February. This one are always part of recipe that we do in our regular curriculum. So when you come to Frozen Dessert University, either you attend level 1 or level 2, we give the students the possibility to try their own flavor, to see what type of ingredients we have available, and see what kind of flavor combination. So everyone can leave the class by creating their own recipe with their own ingredients. And we have plenty of options because with ice cream, like any food item, once you have your base stable, so you have a good white base, a good chocolate base, you can create as many flavor combinations as you want. So your imagination is only the limit. So when you come to class, in our hands-on that is always in the afternoon, each of you will have the possibility to put the hands in the machine, to create something unique and something new. So as we are doing today, so today those are flavors that are very popular right now in US. So raspberry ice cream, flavor with fruit, chocolate enriched during the cold month. This is what our customer want more. While when we go into the summer month, generally we tend to sell more fruit flavor, something more refreshing. Depends even when you are in this country, because if you are in Florida, you're going to sell very different product than what you sell in Massachusetts. So our ice cream is ready. So we are now going, as we did before, to open the door, extract a part of our ice cream, drizzle with the chocolate on top of the table, and then go back to extract the rest. So look what a beautiful consistency. This is our raspberry. With fresh fruit, if you notice, some people are like, oh, I was expecting this a little bit brighter. When we use fresh fruit, the color, like frozen fruit, the color is always not as bright as we use like chemical coloring. So if you need like some more brighten color, there's many ways to color your ice cream. You could either use like dragon fruit powder, or there are like natural red coloring that gives like this brighter color coming from fruit, and they are totally natural. So there are many ways to make your ice cream look more appealing without use necessarily artificial coloring to brighten it up. So you see, I'm gently moving the ice cream around to make sure that the chocolate goes everywhere. I personally like when the ice cream is very rich, so I prefer to add a little more in every layer than a little less. I make sure that when the customer try my ice cream, they always say, "Oh wow, this is so rich. This is full of whatever I was expecting to have." So in this case, it's a raspberry chocolate. So the customer, when they try it, they need to feel that both there is raspberry, there is chocolate, everything is inside there. Okay, so again, same things here. I'm gonna drizzle my chocolate on top. I could either leave it like this if I want like more of a gelato style decoration. This is really the way that gelato is made generally. But if you use this bucket and if you make ice cream, the process is exactly the same. Nothing changed. So you drizzle a little bit of the chocolate, you move it. You add a little more. And voila. Our raspberry ice cream with chocolate ripple is done. Also, this one, we're gonna put it inside the hardening cabinet to cool down a little bit. We made two amazing Valentine flavor, which you will amaze your customer with. Olivia is gonna send you the recipe that we use today at the end of this class. Sign up for the next one that is gonna be in February. I don't have the date on top of my head, but I'm sure can find it on our website. And check even for our classes. We have our upcoming classes in Chicago. We have more classes coming up in Dallas, in Chicago, in North Carolina, dedicated to soft serve and ice cream and dairy-free and plant-based product. So please keep staying connected with us, and thank you for attending today.